across America. That's what John McCain does not get, and that's why we have to win this election. Now let me explain to you, Manchester. Let me tell you why I get it. Let me tell you why I get it. Because when I see that that veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan coming home without a job, maybe with post-traumatic stress disorder, I think about my grandfather coming back from World War II after Patton's army, after fighting in Patton's army, and him being rewarded by a government that valued his service with a GI Bill that paid his way through college, and they gave him the chance to get a loan to buy a house for himself and his wife and his new child. When I think about that young woman who's working the night shift and going to school at the same time, I think about my mother, a single mom, raising 2 children, going to work at the same time, sometimes having to go on food stamps to make sure we had enough to eat, but still being able to send her children to the best schools in the country. Because that's what a generous nation does. When I meet a couple that doesn't have health care, I think about my mother when she was dying of cancer on a hospital bed, having to argue with the insurance companies because they were saying maybe there's a pre-existing condition and we don't have to pay your medical bills. So I know what it's like to see a loved one suffer, not just because they're sick, but because of a broken health care system. When I see guys who've been laid off of their jobs and are trying to figure out how to make ends meet, I think about all the people that I worked with, a group of churches on the south side of Chicago, after I joined them to deal with the steel plants that had closed, and we set up job training programs for the unemployed and after-school programs for youth and tried to rebuild the community, black, white, and Hispanics coming together. I know what it's like to struggle. I've seen what the American people go through, and I know that when ordinary people come together, we can do extraordinary things, but we need leadership from Washington, and that's what I intend to provide. But understand this, Manchester, if we are going to bring about the change that we need, then we have to understand what change is. We can't be fooled, because John McCain, listen, I've been talking about change since this campaign started. Some of you were involved. I talked about change when we were up. I talked about change when we were down. But now suddenly John McCain and his running mate, Sarah Palin, they're out there saying, we're for change. We're for change too. Well, I'm glad that they now agree with me that we've got to change America. But let's be absolutely clear about what change means. Change isn't just a word. Let's describe specifically what change is. When John McCain says he wants to continue the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and wants to provide hundreds of billions of dollars of new tax breaks to some of the wealthiest corporations in America, including ExxonMobil and oil companies getting $4 billion worth of tax breaks. That's not change. When his tax plan leaves 100 million Americans with no relief, not a dime's worth of tax relief, that's not change. That's the same old Bush economics. Let me tell you what change is. What I've said is 95% of working families in America, 95% of working families here in New Hampshire, they will get a tax cut under an Obama presidency. A tax cut. We're going to put more money in your pocket so you can deal with rising costs of home heating oil and rising costs of gasoline and rising costs of food, and maybe save a little bit so you can watch your child someday graduate from college, and you will have saved the money for it, and you'll be able to retire with some dignity and some respect. And we'll say to senior citizens, you don't have to pay taxes on your Social Security if you make less than $50,000, because you need a break too. That's what changes New Hampshire. So don't believe these ads that go around saying Obama's going to raise taxes, because the truth is, I provide 3 times the amount of middle-class tax relief than John McCain does. Don't take my word for it. Some Republican analysts have said the same thing. So those ads are dishonest, they are untruthful, and they're not the kind of change that we need. Let me explain on health care what change is not. John McCain has basically the same health care plan that George Bush does. What he says is, we are going to start taxing the health benefits that you get from your employer. We're going to eliminate the tax deduction, which means employers are going to be less likely to provide you health care. Now, what McCain says is he's going to give you a $5,000 credit. Here's the only problem. Health care may cost $12,000 or $14,000. And if you have a pre-existing condition, or if you're an older American, if you're not healthy or wealthy, then good luck trying to get health insurance from your insurer if you're on your own. That's not the change we need. That's more of the same. So what I said is this: we are going to make sure that we work with your employer to provide you health care and lower your premiums. And if you don't have health care, you can get the same health care that a member of Congress gets for themselves. And we are not going to wait 20 years from now to do it, or 10 years from now to do it. We're going to do it by the end of my first term as president. That's the change that you need, New Hampshire. On education, John McCain doesn't have any ideas for education. His own people admit it. The only thing he does is he trots out the old thing about we're going to give vouchers to everybody. He has no commitment to public schools in America. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to invest in early childhood education to close the achievement gap. We are going to pay teachers higher salaries and give them more support. We're going to hold our schools more accountable, but we're going to change No Child Left Behind, because we're tired of seeing the money left behind for No Child Left Behind. And we are going to say to the young people in America, if you put some time into community service, working in an underserved hospital, working in a veterans home, working in an underserved school, joining the Peace Corps, joining our military, we are going to make sure that you can afford to go to college. We will help pay your way. That's what change is. Change is having an honest debate about energy and actually getting something done. John McCain and I actually agreed on something. He said a while back, he said, the reason we haven't had any serious energy policy, the reason we actually import more oil now than we did 30 years ago from foreign countries is because we've had politicians who are just doing the bidding of special interests in Washington and not getting serious about the problem. I agree. Here's the only thing he left out. He's been there 26 of those 30 years. And he hasn't done anything serious about it. He said no to alternative energy, no to biofuels. We're going to say yes to a new energy policy in this country. We are going to set a goal. The same way John F. Kennedy said we're going to the moon in 10 years, we are going to end our dependence on Middle Eastern oil in 10 years' time. We can do it. And we're going to invest in the new cars of the future, and hybrids and electric cars built not in Japan or South Korea, but right here in the United States of America. We're going to invest billions in research and development around solar and wind and biodiesel and hydrofuels. We are going to build a new electricity grid in this country. We are going to rebuild our energy infrastructure to make sure that our homes are more efficient and our cars are more efficient. And we are going to send a message to the oil companies, yes, we need to increase production here in the United States, and we can look at offshore drilling as an aspect of our challenge, but understand we only have 3 to 4% of the world's oil reserves, and we use 25% of the world's oil. So when you see at the Republican convention them shouting, "Drill, baby, drill," that's not the slogan for a 21st century America. We want to create a new energy policy that actually leads us into the 21st century and create 5 million jobs that can be exported and pay good wages right here in New Hampshire and right here in the United States. We need to rebuild our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, but also our broadband lines. Also high-speed rail. And if people tell you that we can't do it, you just remind them we're spending $10 billion a month in Iraq while Iraq has a surplus of $79 billion. We are going to end this war in Iraq responsibly, bring our troops home, and start rebuilding America. John McCain wants to have a debate about national security. Let's have that debate. I warned that going into Iraq would distract us from Afghanistan. John McCain cheerleaded for it. John McCain was wrong, and I was right. I've said we need to make sure that we are increasing our strength in Afghanistan, and we should be going after bin Laden. Don't talk about chasing him to the gates of hell. We know where he is in the hills between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We should have stayed focused there in the first place. John McCain was wrong and I was right. We don't need more tough talk. We need smart strategy. And we need to recognize that the world is looking for leadership from America. And if we join with them, if we rebuild our alliances, if we send them a message that we are going to live up to our values and our ideals, then once again we will be that shining light on the hill. We will be a beacon for all those who hunger for freedom, all those who yearn for prosperity. That's the kind of American leadership that we are looking for, and I want to provide it as President of the United States of America. So let's just remember what change is. Now, John McCain, his basic message to you is this: watch out, George Bush. With the exception of economic policy, tax policy, healthcare policy, education policy, foreign policy, and Karl Rove-style politics, we're really going to shake things up in Washington. He said the other day, I'm going to tell the lobbyists that they can't run Washington anymore. Who's he going to tell? His campaign chairman? Who was one of the top corporate lobbyists in Washington? Who's he going to tell? His campaign manager, who was one of the top corporate lobbyists in Washington? What does that mean, that he's going to tell them they're not running Washington, they're running his campaign? Who's going to run his White House? That's not shaking things up. That's why I said at the beginning of this campaign I would not take PAC money. I would not take money from federal registered lobbyists. That's why I passed the toughest ethics reform legislation since Watergate when I got to the Senate, working on a bipartisan basis. That's what changes. Lobbyists have not funded my campaign. They will not run my White House, and they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm President of the United States of America. So let's understand what's going on in this election, because we only have 8 weeks to go, less than 8 weeks to go. The McCain-Palin ticket, they don't want to debate the Obama-Biden ticket on issues because they are running on 8 more years of what we've just seen. And they know it. They don't have new ideas to help you send your kids to college. They don't have new ideas to help you get health care. They don't have new ideas to help you increase wages. So as a consequence, what they're going to spend the next 7, 8 weeks doing is trying to distract you. They're going to talk about pigs, and they're going to talk about lipstick, and they're going to talk about Paris Hilton, and they're going to talk about Britney Spears. They will try to distort my record, and they will try to undermine your trust in what the Democrats intend to do. I mean, that's what they do every election. Look, they did it 4 years ago, they did it 8 years ago, they've done it 20 years ago. But let me be clear, and I don't care whether you are a Democrat or an independent or a Republican. I want you to be perfectly clear about this. The times are too serious for those strategies to work this time. This moment is too urgent. If we don't bring about the changes that we need starting right now, then our children may not have the same kind of America that we want them to have. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that millions more people don't have health insurance. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that the ocean tides have risen a little more and that the weather patterns have changed a little more. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that China and India have outcompeted us again because we weren't serious about fixing our education system. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that we've been distracted by wars we don't need to fight instead of focusing on the wars that we do have to win. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out we still got veterans sleeping on the streets instead of providing them the care that we need. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that more people are jobless and more people have lost their homes and more people don't have health care. I don't want that future for America. I don't want that future for my children. I don't want that future for yours. And so I believe that we will not be distracted this time. We will not be diverted this time. John McCain may have the lobbyists, but I've got you. That's what the pundits have never understood about this election. This election's not about John McCain, it's not about Barack Obama, it's not about Joe Biden or Sarah Palin. It is not about us, it is about you. It's about your hopes. It's about your dreams. It's about you getting up every day and going to work and hoping that you will be rewarded for your efforts. It's about you building a better lives for yourselves. That's what this election is all about. That's the choice that you have to make.